Hello everybody, GWS here to respond to a video by a user called Drywall Jackson on my video, Atheists Are Immoral Proof. And just to give a little bit of context on that, I made this video about a month or two ago, I'd guess, in response to comments about Pat Robertson after he made particular comments, or I can't remember specifically what it was, but I made a video, but that wasn't the only thing that happened during that time. This video that I made was more in response to the general time, in particular TYT and Secular Talk, where they were, like, Roger Ailes had just died, and the comments surrounding Roger Ailes were far, far worse. The Pat Robertson stuff was the end trigger, but it wasn't the majority cause. Look at the Roger Ailes comments, look on Twitter, and listen to the Young Turks commentary. You know, Cenk Uygur is quoted as saying, "I don't understand this reverence with death." And so, this video is made to criticize that, so let's go over that. The first thing he does is he talks about a Sargon of Akkad reference that I made. And what he doesn't seem to understand, and it's right on his screenshot that he took, there was a Sargon quote above the cactus guy that I was quoting. And I was saying Sargon of Akkad in passing because I was reading down through the comments and looking for something relevant to say. And the Sargon of Akkad comments, for those of you who watch Secular Talk, many of those on this channel do, unlike some people who may be passing through, who may be ignorant and may not be so inclined to look at the facts or do some research, those comments are extremely common, and that's what I was referencing there. Like, this is a typical comment. And then I went on to state the main comment. And then he goes through other petty things. Video quality, liking my own comment, which, yes, I did like my own comment, because I am better than all those commenters there. And yes, I'm going to like my comment because I am better than you, and that was the point behind doing it. And as you can see, I don't like my comments anywhere else because I'm not coming from a position where I'm better. But there, hell yeah, I'm better because I'm not wishing death upon people. And then, speaking of that, his next thing is to post a picture of God hates gays, and Christians saying that. You get a little false equivalence there, because wishing death upon gays is not nearly the same level as wishing death upon elderly people. Like, just go die. We've even seen that recently with McCain. Look on Twitter if you want to see modern examples of atheists. Look on Twitter and search John McCain. You will see that a large percentage of those comments say they hope John McCain dies soon. Why didn't John McCain die? Why can't other people die? Just all this hateful, just this vitriol and it comes from the atheists. And I don't say that as a left or right thing, because it comes from atheists on the right too, with their whole militant style. You see that a lot with a lot of authoritarian people on the right who are atheists, but who are against left-wing social justice warrior ideas, etc. Yeah, and then he goes, his first relevant point, well, his final irrelevant point was to reference when I was talking about overpopulation, me going off on a separate tangent. Again, I'm going to go off on tangents because I don't edit my videos, I don't cut them up, I don't use Audacity and knock out all the blips and all the background noise going on in whatever place I'm doing a video in. I don't do that. I come as I am, as any honest person should. Yeah, if you want to pretty yourself up, pretty your videos up, equalize your audio, cut up your videos, try to make everything look good, that's on you. But you're being less honest by doing it in favor of presentation, and I choose not to do that. And as you can see, I don't even monetize my videos anymore. I just stopped doing that. So I also have a video on that. But the first relevant point he makes deals with the idea that you can be moral without being religious. And no, you cannot in any objective sense, because if you are an excuse me, if you are an atheist, then there can be no objective morality. None. Unless you can demonstrate that through the laws of physics, at the immediate present of the Big Bang, morality was created. And you have to find a physical representation, explanation of morality. But he admits his interpretation in the video that morality is an abstract concept, which means it exists in your head. So what does that mean? That means that Drywall Jackson here is admitting that morality does not exist objectively. So what does this imply? That implies that Mr. Jackson here does not believe that child sacrifice is objectively wrong. How do I know this? Well, okay, you have his ethos. He may believe in his ethos, his code of ethics, his Western code of ethics, that child sacrifice, child slavery, genital mutilation, etc. are wrong. But his ethos is not the only ethos, because say you have a group like the Aztecs or the Romans, who believed in Romans believed in killing for entertainment, Aztecs believed in child sacrifice. Under moral relativism, which is what a purely abstract version of morality states, those things cannot be objectively wrong. All they are is part of a different code of ethics, a different ethos. And that is a big problem that atheists face. Now, it is true that atheists can behave in a moral manner, but that does not make them moral people. What that means is that they are following the moral landscape laid out by, wait for it, religious people. Because before religion, what did you have? You had tribalism. It was pretty much like the animal kingdom free-for-all. Anything outside your immediate family, your immediate tribe, group, whatever you want to call it, was the enemy. You were competing with them for food, for resources. And if they encroached upon your territory, you either fled from them or you killed them if you were more powerful. That was the way atheist values worked back hundreds of thousands of years ago. It was every man for himself. What allowed people to live together in massive civilizations were, excuse me, my family, my extended family, could cross paths with another extended family, live in the same neighborhood, eat at the same restaurants, eat at the same places, eat the same foods from the same resources, share food, share water, share space, share all this stuff with rarely coming into contact and fighting over it. How do you get that? You get that through civilization and a common code of ethics. This common code of ethics ultimately comes from religious people. You don't get this code of ethics from atheism. And you can't. And you see the opposite happen, it go the opposite direction when you have societies where religion breaks down. You saw it in the USSR, you saw it in Cuba, you see it in North Korea, where when religious values break down, what do you get? You start getting people acting tribally in their own interests, thinking of nobody else, just trying to use the systems that were created for religious purposes to try to climb themselves to the top. That's how you get government bureaucrat elites in these atheist nations. And so ultimately, no, you cannot be moral while being an atheist. All you can do is you can follow the moral landscape laid out by others, but you yourself cannot be moral because you do not have a moral compass, and your values do not derive from those of God. Or those your values do derive from those of God. Excuse me for the tongue twist. Again, I don't edit my shit. Okay. And then he makes the point that this could just be another side of these people that are commenting, because he references my hateful language as like hypocritical of what I'm saying. But here's the problem with that. Nowhere in my video did I wish death upon that. And he tries to connect a major dot by me saying go to hell means I wish you're dead. No. That statement can have a variety of meanings depending on who you talk to. And I gave very clear context in what I was saying. Go to hell, in the sense that I stated it, means I don't care what happens to you. And I was referencing there is a side of me that says that. One side of me says, I wish you're all saved. I wish everybody would come to the right thing, right place. And then the other side says, go to hell, I don't even care. You know, I'm done with it. And this wasn't my actual feeling. Because, see, when I made the video, and when I stated that in particular, it's calling people out. It's basically saying, you know, why am I going to care about you when you act in this way? And that's the important thing. Because atheists are asking people to accept their values, accept them, and then they go on and they post this kind of hate. They try to say that they are on as good of a level or better than theists. And then they go and they post this kind of hate. It's to call them out to be better people. And I'm not saying atheists can't be good people. They can, but they don't have a moral compass. And that's why it's not really that possible of a thing unless they change their thinking and they accept God. But anyhow, he wants to claim that this could just be that same logic used by them. This is just another side of them. This is them being angry stating this. And that goes back to why I posted this video that I stated at the beginning of this is not an isolated incident with atheists, particularly modern atheists. This type of rhetoric is repeated over and over and over again. And I don't care if it's just YouTube comments or Twitter. The fact is, when I see atheists, this is how they behave. And if you look at the majority of the people on YouTube comments and on Twitter, you see this. Now, just keep this in mind. And this is just conjecture, but it makes sense when you think about it. If you had 70 to 80% religious people instead of 70 to 80% atheists posting regularly in comment sections and on Twitter, would you have this kind of language? No. Because, yeah, while you may find the oddball comment of a Christian saying they wish somebody would die, or you're not going to find that widespread in churches, in Christian forums, or in any of that. Most of the messages, not all, most of them are positive. Most of them are based on hope, lovingness. You know, there's some spite and anger, but there's not wishing bad things on people. And that's where I'm getting at. And this is the problem with atheism. And This goes to what I was also saying about millennials, and I can touch on that briefly because millennials make up a very large percentage of those who are non religious or are atheists. Is you get millennials who feel entitled, and that comes from their lack of religion. They feel like somebody owes them something in life. Somebody, other people, older people, like Pat Robertson, owe them something. Baby boomers owe them something. And I see this repeatedly. Like, baby boomers, they did this to us. Our failures are their fault, and, all the sob stories you could think of. But the fact is this: millennials, all their hardships are caused by themselves. All their struggles are caused by themselves. When you have an attitude of entitlement instead of humbleness, instead of trying to live the life that you're given, then this is what happens. You get this kind of anger and just blaming others for failures. I'm going to give a little quote from Bum Phillips, an old football coach. That is, you fail in life all the time, but you're only a failure when you start blaming others. And that, to me, is the best statement that can be said to millennials. Blaming others, blaming the rich, blaming old people, blaming religious people, blaming all these people, and then saying, give to me, me, all about me, my struggle, my whatever it is you're complaining about, discriminating against me, and, I deserve a leg up, and that's a problem. And that does go back to all this. It all comes back to the sense of entitlement created by people who, when they're not religious, they start getting greedy and start wanting more things. And with religious values, you just don't get that. At least to a degree, because there is a check on that. Because when you have a positive relationship with God, you feel obligated to help others. You're not thinking of, how am I doing? You're thinking of, how's my neighbor doing? Does my neighbor need help with, whatever? Is there any way I can help this person feel better? You're thinking about others, because that's what religious values are. It's not about you. It's not about getting mad at somebody else because you failed in life. It's, what can I do? What small thing can I do to contribute? And to me, that's the important thing that people need to be thinking about. Anyhow, thanks for listening, guys. Love you all. God bless.